You see, even when I'm sitting here looking at these rods that I've not used for 2 years, I'm struggling now to open the clip because normally I'm on fire, but I've actually not used them since the winter session on Elphix, and I'm looking at them now thinking, why not? Because they look absolutely fantastic when they're in situ. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Stealth Graphene range of rods from Century. Now, these have probably been out for a few years now. They're still very, very current. They're still one of our really popular sellers at Century. But it's well worth doing a new video on them, just going over what I found and how I use them, what test gears I use, etc, etc. So straight away, what you will notice about these is they're still very old school, where we've got an abbreviated handle. You don't see that on a lot of rods these days, and it's something that I really like. It takes me right back to the 80s when we first started getting glass sort of carp rods that have got split handles like this. So starting at the bottom, we've got the black aluminium laser etched Century anti-scratch butt cap. Moving up, you've got the handle, you've got obviously the matte black, super sexy Alps reel seat from Century. Really tiny little matte black collars either side of the reel seat, just to keep it aesthetically pleasing and match it into the rest of the rod. So we're now going to move up the blank into the crux of the actual build. So the eyes are, they're SIC titaniums, but in Gunsmoke grey, and I think they really suit the blank absolutely perfectly. Moving straight up, I mean, one of the main features about this rod is the extra carbon that's put onto the blank or onto the mandrel during the manufacturing process. And what that does, it does two things. First, it aids in twist of the blank. So when you've watched the rods being compressed in super slow motion, you can clearly see on a lot of rods that the eyes twist, or the core of the blank twists, certainly the tip eye or the top two eyes. What Century do is we add extra strength and extra carbon right on the tip section, and that eliminates that twist. So what that just, it not only makes it look a bit better when, because it's very off-putting for me when I see these eyes and they're twisted and you just think something's wrong with the blank. That's just how the blank acts under extreme pressure. But obviously when you strengthen the tip, it not only stops that or eliminates that, it gives you massive benefits with the accuracy. So you see a lot of rods that a lot of people sort of you're aiming straight and the rig's always going to the right or the left, and that's telling you that the tip is probably twisting quite a lot on the cast. So that doesn't happen on the graphenes. What we'll now do, we'll look at the test curves. So they go all the way from 12 foot 2.5 all the way up to 13 foot 3.5. Now, I'm not going to cover each one because I've got the 12 foot 3.5s. Now, I use them in a situation down on Elphix. Elphix on the, I think we're on the North Lake or something like that. It's not a massive lake, probably 6-7 acres. And I had a few fish in the winter on these rods. It was the first time that I used them, and I managed to christen all three, which doesn't normally happen. You normally get the rod bogey that keeps over your head for some time where you can't christen your new rods. So I had fish to over 40 pound, but it was interesting. The 40 pounder came probably 15 yards from the bank. Now, you may think a 12 foot 3.5 is too powerful, that, and in a normal situation, it would be. I was forced into a fishing situation where the fish were fizzing up close in and I had to put a rig there. Obviously I got a bite, it turned out to be a 40 pounder, but the rod, I didn't feel overgunned with it. Even though a 12 foot 3.5 is a big rod, if you like, in stature, I didn't feel like I was going to pull the hook at any minute, because a lot of the strength is right through the butt section and into the midsection, but you've still got a very forgiving tip, even though we strengthen the tips on the graphene with the extra carbon. So that's the overview of the rod, and I suppose just to close, another rod in the range that is very popular, certainly in Europe, is the 13 foot 3.5. Now, what you've got to look at is obviously the main sellers in the UK are 12 foot 3.25, 12 foot 3.5, 12 foot 3.75. The 12 foot 3.75 is a beast. It is an out and out distance rod, but again, a very soft tip. Now I'm thinking a 13 foot 3.5 could possibly behave something similar between a 12 foot 3.25 and a 12 foot 3.5, because you've got that extra foot on a 13 foot rod. Not only does that give you a bigger arc for casting, but it gives you a bit more forgiveness, I guess is the word I'm looking for, because it's a foot longer, because it's a longer rod, so you've got a bigger test curve or a bigger bend. But they are very popular in Europe, and what that's telling me is they must be a softer rod in the tip, because a lot of European anglers fish from a boat, so they don't want 12 foot 3.75 test curves really, because obviously when they're playing fish from a boat, the fish is literally next to them, so they want a very forgiving rod. So maybe for you guys out there that prefer a 13 foot rod but still want something that can cast a very long way but still be forgiving enough not to pull hooks, the 13 foot 3.5 could be one to look at. I mean, looking at it now and how I've just described the range of graphenes, there isn't anything that I don't like about these rods. So I can seriously see these not going back in the loft and going straight back into my carryall. Even things that the personal touches that not only make the rod very, very aesthetically pleasing, but even the little laser etched Century stealth graphene on the reel seat, just class, as you would expect from everything that Century make. But the lightness is there, the looks, the test curves, they are an absolutely fantastic looking rod, and they just perform out of this world. So that is the overview and the full range of the stealth graphenes. Check them out at your nearest Century stockist.